Tim Peel is for, my gosh, over 1,000 games. I think 1,300 plus. NHL regular season games, 90 more in the playoffs as a referee in the best hockey league in the world. The Stripes and Snipes podcast, and I don't care if it's supposed to be Snipes first. Tim Peel is here, not Jeremy Roenick. He joins us on the Adam Gold Show at Tim C. Peel 20 on Twitter. Sir, how you doing?
I'm great, Adam. Thanks for reading that resume, because according to Twitter, I am the worst referee that ever officiated in the NHL. So you're good for my ego. You're building me up today, because after last night's tweet today, the Twitter trolls are after me, and I guess I was the worst ref ever.
I think you're tied with everybody else, Tim. That's just the reality of being a referee in sports. You're going to make somebody mad. Look, I have one broad question to start before we get into specifics, and that is there a difference between refereeing a regular season game and a playoff game?
Yeah, there absolutely is. There's not a difference in the standard. The difference is, and I'll give you an example. Mr. Bettman, the commissioner, we have a conference call the day before the NHL playoffs start. He really emphasizes the fact that he wants the same standard called in the playoffs that is called in the regular season, such as hooks on the hands, scoring chances, things like that. Our guys are graded. There's 22 referees that went into the playoffs. After the first round, that is cut to 12. So it's really cut down. 10 people go home after the first round. And how that is judged is the NHL, with Colin Campbell, Stephen Walkham, and the officiating managers, they will rate the referees after the first round to determine who was most consistent and who deserves to go on. A lot of people think, I see it both on social media. Hey, let them play. We don't want calls in overtime. But then on the other hand, you have other people saying, call it by the rule book. So it's tough to have it both ways. One thing I will say is, are there things missed? Absolutely. As a referee that is working a Stanley Cup playoff game, before I throw my arm up, I want to make sure that it's a penalty. It's not the regular season. It's not January in Carolina or Columbus.
Right.
And if I call a trip and it's not really a good trip, okay, well, nobody's going to get too upset. But you better make sure that you're calling the 2-minute penalty that everybody in the building can see.
Tim Peel is joining us, former NHL On Ice official. Over 1,300 regular season games, 90 more in the playoffs. So you said letting them play. Gary was like, that's what people want. That's what you hear all the time. Let the players decide it. If you allow penalties to go on, though, aren't we not letting the players decide it? We're letting the wrong reasons for the players to decide. You have to call the penalty, right?
No, you're absolutely right. And for example, it's a great point you brought up in the Dallas-Colorado game, Game 7. The Colorado player pulled down the Dallas player off the face-off.
Jack Drury, brought down Tyler Seguin.
He just hog-tied him and threw him to the ice. And Dan O'Rourke, who's worked multiple Stanley Cup finals, I think 6, made that call. And Dan is working in the second round of the playoffs. So that's, to your point. If you don't call stuff, then you are determining or helping determine the outcome of the game.
Yeah, so I've never really understood that comment. Like, if it's close, are certain things going to be looked at differently? I think it might have even been Carolina's own broadcast, but as we went into overtime, I think it was the Devils game in maybe Game 5 or wherever it was. Doesn't really matter. The only thing that's going to be called now is a delay of game, puck over glass, or an obvious high stick that draws blood. Everything else is going to be overlooked.
Yeah,
and no way you could do that.
No, that's inaccurate. That's 100% inaccurate. There's, I saw. I'm trying to think the game. It was an overtime game, and there was a tripping penalty called. Like, No, our guys are still going to. If our guys decide to put the whistle away and let the players decide the game, then Stephen Walkham, the director of officiating, will not move that official on to the next round. And they may not work a lot of games in the second round. That'll determine it as well. So no, that's inaccurate. Our guys are going to go out there and they're going to call penalties that are penalties.
All right, let me get to a couple of specific things. And we've seen a lot of extra stuff in the playoffs because that's what you're going to get. I don't think anybody ever wants to call penalties for like those post-whistle scrums that have face washing. And that's just playoff hockey to me. It's sort of like it adds. It's like when you put salt or pepper on stuff. I mean, that's just flavor. I'm all about flavor. But we have seen at least in 2 occasions, maybe more, because I didn't see the injury that sent Logan Thompson off for Washington in the first round. But I watched Sam Bennett hit Anthony Stolarz. Even though I didn't think there was a ton there, it was clearly an intentional hit to the side of the head of Stolarz. And I saw Timo Meier hit Frederik Andersen in the first round because Meier's momentum was stopped, and then he leaned in. He knew what he was doing.
Right.
Neither were called on the ice. And in the case of the Hurricanes, they called a 5-minute major because of an injury. Then they went and looked at it, and they said no penalty at all. I can't imagine that wouldn't be a penalty if the referee decided to call a 2-minute major live. How are those adjudicated in your estimation?
Well, the Logan Thompson play was in Montreal, and actually his own player ran into him.
Oh, gosh.
Call
a penalty.
Yeah, exactly. The Sam Bennett play, I got to be honest, I find it hard to believe that Anthony Stolarz is out for however many games because of that contact by Bennett. Because just prior to that, he took a shot off the head.
I agree with you.
And took his helmet off. The Sam Bennett play is a 2-minute minor maximum.
Yep.
And that's why Department of Player Safety didn't come in and issue any fine. It's a minor penalty that could have been called, but it wasn't. Timo Meier, these guys are really good at it. Corey Perry was, I think, the best at it. Corey Perry just accidentally happens to fall on the goaltender. There's certain players that they take advantage of the situation. They feel a bump, and they accidentally fall into the goalie. The Meier one I saw could have been a minor penalty for interference. But it's so – I am not here to say our officials never make mistakes. Our officials are the best. We make mistakes every game. But in real time, in real speed, does Timo Meier, did he get bumped in? It's easy to then sit back, watch the replay for 2 or 3 times and say, oh, geez, he did fall into him on purpose. But at that moment, because in retrospect, there was a play in Game 1 with Vegas and Edmonton the other night where the Edmonton player, I felt he got bumped into Aiden Hill, and Kelly Sutherland, the referee, gave the Edmonton player an goalie interference penalty. I think he probably did get, shoved in. That's a tough call to make in real time. So it's just not easy to make those calls.
So
and that's why our guys get paid to make those calls in the playoffs, but they're not always going to be right 100% of the time.
So to that end, Tim Peel, and Rod Brind'amour is a huge proponent of it, it wouldn't delay proceedings that much, even though sometimes it takes way too long to go through video.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Just to have video help, right? Not make calls, but allow the referees to go look and, all right, this is what I thought happened is not what happened. Or I missed this. This should have been. Why couldn't we have that in hockey?
I just think, Adam, I think we've got it. I think I understand Rod's point of view, but I think we've got enough video review. We've got it on goals. We've got it on major penalties. We have it on match penalties. We have it on offsides. We have it on high sticks. We now have it on puck over the glass. That was new this year. how many are we going to review a trip in the neutral zone where a guy toe picks? Where do we stop the review? You have to stop it at some point.
You're right about that, but they review everything in Toronto anyway. And if somebody calls a penalty on a guy who toe picks, and it's not a penalty, and it impacts the game, especially in a playoff game, if there's the ability, look, I am somebody who wishes that instant replay in any sport, in all sports, did not exist. We should all be able to move on past bad calls, incorrect call. We should all be able to deal with that because the players aren't perfect. Nobody's expected to be perfect. You shouldn't be. But since we have it, I've never understood why we didn't go for, all right, if we can correct something, regardless of what it is, why not correct it?
You know what? What I'm glad you brought this up because you know what makes this sport so good and what gives people like you and I an opportunity to talk about is our game isn't perfect and mistakes are made just like the players make mistakes. And if we're not brain surgeons here. We don't have this sterile environment where everything is perfect. I think hockey, because mistakes are made as they are in all sports with officiating. We see it in the NFL with holds in playoff games or pass interferences that people complain about. Unless you're going to have robots out there, the players can accept it. The players, will accept mistakes and the GMs will and the coaches will. And I think we've got enough mechanisms in place where with the double minors, the headshots, the things that can really, really impact a game with 5-minute penalties and goalie interference and things like that, I think we've got enough challenges in place that I love it the way it is because it gives us something to talk about. It gives social media, it gives the fans stuff to talk about and complain about the officiating when maybe they want to complain that their team didn't play that well. Well, they can just blame the officials instead.
Tim Peel, former NHL on ice official, you just hit the nail on the head. Twitter would not exist if we got all the calls right. Real quick, this is something I've always struggled with. And I don't think we saw it last night. I think we only saw the one penalty, the embellishment penalty to Evan Rodrigues. I've never understood how you could have a penalty and an embellishment at the same time. To me, it's one or the other. If you're going to call the embellishment, then fine, just call that. But I don't believe you should call both. I've never understood that in any way, shape, or form. What do you think on that?
Well, I completely disagree because if I hook you, for example,
right,
and I hook you, and it's clearly a penalty, and you decide to embellish it and do a barrel roll, well, that was unnecessary. You were already getting the.
Then just send that guy off. Then just send that guy off.
No, but you can't because the player that did hook the player did commit a foul to cause that guy to dive. So you can't just say, well, you know what, he hooked him, but I'm only going to call the embellishment. You still have to call the hook. So embellishment is a tough call for officials to make because you're basically calling the player a cheater.
Yep.
And I remember back in Washington, Montreal, I think it was 2014 when Halak stopped like 60 shots against Washington, and Dan O'Rourke and I were actually working that game, and we called 3 embellishment penalties against Montreal in the Bell Center in Game 6. So you can imagine how those fans were. So, and 2 of them were against Max Lapierre, and the third was against Brian Giunta. So, you know what? It's a tough call to make, but the league's trying to get rid of it, and we see it in soccer. It's to the point where it's embarrassing in other sports. And I think our guys do a pretty good job of trying to deter it as much as possible.
And in soccer, they will give a yellow card for an embellishment.
Yeah.
And in hockey, if we want to get rid of it, this is why I think we should just call the embellishment. In that case, hey, their screw up is worse than the first one. We're going to call the embellishment because we want to stop that, and then just get back to the business of hooking players. and that would be fine. Tim Peel.
Well, Adam, you should send your rule idea into Colin Campbell and the NHL and see if they'll bring you into their next meeting.
I have many rules to suggest. Tim, I appreciate your time, sir. We'll do it again.
Anytime. Good luck to the Canes.
Thank you very much. Tim Peel, at Tim C. Peel 20 on Twitter. I believe that. If we want to get rid of embellishment, and I think most of us hate that players dive, exaggerate the reaction to a penalty. And I'm talking specifically to you, Igor Shesterkin. Let's go about the business of getting rid of it by penalizing that more severely.
Yeah.
If we do that, because if we eliminate that, then the officials can simply call the penalty, the first penalty, and not because it. And again, I think they get embellishment wrong a lot. I don't understand the Evan. I watched the play.
Yeah, that one, he was a defenseless player. Like, it's
face first into the wall.
Right.
What are we doing?
I'm sorry. I can't feel my face. I have to go in the back now. Like,
and now that's your next bump song.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
It will
We'll
be.
come back.